This video is for entertainment purposes only. It is not meant to bully or harass anybody. And today I picked up the Farmer's Almanac and I went to see what was going on. And today is Shrove Tuesday. It is also known as Mardi Gras. It is also known as Carnival. And I believe the carnivals in Rio de Janeiro throw the biggest parties in the world. And I'm going to show you some footage. She's like something you see out of a video game or something. That is art, ladies and gentlemen. That is something called art. Those are all artists, the dancers, whoever made the costumes, the music. It's just gorgeous. This is art. I love these kind of things. People make these things. It's so easy to get wrapped up in the bad things in the world. But when you make your own stuff and enjoy life, humans can do great things. It's beautiful. This is from Wikipedia. Mardi Gras, or Fat Tuesday, refers to the carnival celebration beginning on or after the Christian feast of the Epiphany, Three Kings Day, and culminating on the day before Ash Wednesday, which is known as Shrove Tuesday. Mardi Gras is French for Fat Tuesday, reflecting the practice of the last night of eating rich, fatty foods before the ritual Lenten sacrifices and fasting of the Lenten season. You remember in the Super Bowl they had the pink hellebore, which is the Lenten rose. It's just interesting how they put that in there. And tomorrow Lent begins. It's Ash Wednesday. So do your partying now. Get out your sins. When I think of Mardi Gras, I think of New Orleans. And I immediately think of voodoo. The word voodoo, which has many different names and spellings, is the name of a West African animist spiritual folkway. Some class it as a religion. However, voodoo is more of a way of life. It is a supernatural ancestral connection passed from generation to generation by word of mouth, rituals, and spiritual practices. Voodoo has variations from tribe to tribe religion. On the other hand, is based on formal organization, myths, and dogma and text buildings and strive for worship and hierarchy of ordained leaders. So also in Santeria, Santa Muerte, those all have elements of voodoo. They have a mix of the old Aztec sacrifice religions and voodoo, which is of the old gods, and that comes from Africa. It gets very complicated, and this gets a little spooky for me, guys. So get a cup of get a hot beverage and a blanket. We're going to talk about some scary things today. When I think of voodoo, I also think of Robert the Doll. This was a real doll, and he was based off of Chucky. And I'm sorry, Robert. You're supposed to apologize to him if you take his picture. Or even some people say if you look at him. So I'm sorry, Robert. We're going to talk about you today. Robert the Doll is an allegedly haunted doll exhibit at the East Martello Museum. Robert was once owned by Key West, Florida painter and author Robert Eugene Otto. The doll originally belonged to Robert Eugene Otto, an artist described as eccentric who belonged to a prominent Key West family. The doll was reportedly manufactured by the Steve Company of Germany, purchased by Otto's grandfather while on a trip to Germany in 1904, and given to a young Otto as a birthday gift. The doll's sailor suit was likely an outfit that Otto once wore as a child. So the Steve Company gets a little strange. This looks like the teddy bear from Demonic Toys or something. After I saw the scary movies, toys are just a little bit creepy. But Richard Steve was a German designer known for helping create the teddy bear. Some versions of the legend claims that a young girl of Bahamian descent gave Otto the doll as a gift as retaliation for a wrongdoing. Other stories claim that the doll moved voodoo figurines around the room and was aware of what went on around him. Still, other legends claim that the doll vanished after Otto's house changed ownership a number of times after his death, or that young Otto triggered the doll's supernatural powers by blaming his childhood mishaps on the doll. According to local folklore, the doll has caused car accidents, broken bones, job loss, divorce, and cornucopia of other misfortunes. And museum visitors supposedly experience post-visit misfortunes for failing to respect Robert. I have high respect for Robert. They made a lot of money off of you, Robert, with the Chucky movies. When I think of voodoo, I think of Marie Laveau. She was a Louisiana Creole practitioner of voodoo, herbalist, and midwife who was renowned in New Orleans. Her daughter, Marie Laveau II, also practiced root work conjure, Native American and African spiritualism, as well as Louisiana voodoo. An alternate spelling of her name, Laveau with an X at the end, is considered by historians to be from the original French spelling. This article is from mentalfloss.com, the real-life murderess behind American Horror Story Coven. Honestly, I didn't like Coven that much. I didn't like the girl drama. I wanted to see more magic and action, and they were all busy fighting with each other. It was just too annoying. But anyway, Kathy Bates' character was based on her, I think. This was the most interesting article I could find about it. Marie Delphine Lalaurie was a thrice-married New Orleans socialite in the early 1800s. Like many wealthy Southerners of the time, the Lalauries had household slaves, though it had been long rumored that the slaves were treated cruelly even for the era. The final straw came in 1833 when a young slave girl named Leah was brushing Mimi, Miss Laurie's hair, and accidentally hit a tangle. Outraged at the abuse of her tender head, Delphine chased the poor girl around the house with a whip. The chase ended on the roof of the mansion where Leah was driven to the edge by the whip-wielding lady of the house. Forced to choose between a flogging or a leap, Leah chose the latter and died when she smashed into the stone courtyard 3 stories below. It said that her body narrowly escaped hitting a man who was entering the house. The man reported Lalaurie to the police. After the girl's body was found in a well on the property, the household was fined $300 and had to sell their slaves. The poor slaves who thought the nightmare was over were wrong. Madame Lalaurie simply gave an associate the funds to purchase her slaves at auction, then had them properly returned to the house. In 1834, one of the kitchen staff purposely set the building on fire, hoping that outside help would arrive. She wasn't disappointed. When firemen showed up, they found a 70-year-old kitchen slave chained to the stove. She had obviously decided that risking death by fire was preferable to remaining in the employ of her sadistic mistress any longer. The woman pleaded with the firemen to rescue slaves from a room in the attic. When the men got upstairs, they had to knock on the attic door. They had to knock the attic door down with a battering ram, and what they found inside actually made some of them vomit. Legend has it, and it is very likely that the stories were embellished over time. There were slaves with their eyes gouged out, slaves with their limbs amputated. At least one had her skin peeled off. Many of their mouths had been sewn shut, sometimes with animal feces inside. One woman's limbs had been broken, then reset so that she resembled a human crab. And the worst part, most of them were all still alive. While it's hard to say how many men, women, and children suffered at the hands of the Dollies over the years, some accounts put it over 100 or more. So the Wikipedia article makes her sound really nice, and most articles on the internet make La Laurie sound okay. One of the scariest stories I've ever heard of is from this book, The Uninvited, The True Story of the Union Screaming House by Stephen LaChance. I saw this story on the Discovery Channel on that show, A Haunting, and that was a very scary episode. And I read the book. Of course, I get too curious about these things. I read the book, and it was absolutely terrifying. The author describes the Discovery Channel version as the Disneyland version, and he's right. The land. So Stephen LaChance and his family moved into a house. Stephen LaChance was a single dad with 3 kids, and he found a really good deal on a rental home. It was almost too good to be true. He and his family moved in, and strange occurrences happened almost right away. When they tried to hang pictures of angels, they would fall off right away. One of the children was chased by a clown. They found an old butcher shower in the basement. And Stephen would have nightmares about a maniacal man covered in blood in the butcher shower, and he continued to have those nightmares after he moved out of the house. He and his family ran out of the house screaming one night after the house became alive and started shaking. The next family that moved in experienced ghostly activity as well. The dad, it was a mom and dad and their teenage daughter. Almost immediately there was haunting activity, and the dad didn't take it seriously. The teenage daughter became suicidal, and she was seeing baby dolls hanging in the trees. The mom says she was sexually assaulted by a ghost. Stephen LaChance couldn't stop thinking about the maniacal man in the butcher shower, and he kept having nightmares. He had to contact the new tenants of that house, and they actually became close and they became friends. The teenage daughter and the mother were hospitalized with mental illness. The mother went through a psych evaluation, and that showed that she was completely sane. As fate would have it, her doctor was a Muslim man, and Muslims have a very good understanding of demonic forces, and he believed her. That family moved out of the house. This story is incredibly scary. He made another book. He made another book called Blessed Are the Wicked. Stephen LaChance made another book called Blessed Are the Wicked, and I have that book, but I haven't read it yet. This is from thescreaminghouse.wordpress.com. The Screaming House is built upon the land which was owned by Captain T. Crow. Captain Crow was the first captain of the 1st Missouri Militia in the Civil War. He lived on the property with his wife Minerva until shortly after her untimely death. The actual Screaming House was built in 1932 and was placed upon the actual spot which once held the slave quarters. In all historical documents, you will not find one incident where the captain admittedly was a slave owner. The slaves were always listed as belonging to his wife Minerva, who came to Union, Missouri with her family from Kentucky. There is talk of Minerva having improper relations with at least one of her male slaves, which may have led to her death and the deaths of all the young male slaves on the property. One of the sources of this atrocity was an actual member and heir of the captain himself. Captain Crow sold his land in Union, Missouri to A.J. Say, who later became the first governor of Oklahoma. Captain Crow moved to Beaufort, Missouri, where he spent the rest of his years. Below you will see the grave sites of Captain and his beautiful wife. Standing on the hillside overlooking Union City Park is a huge nursing home. In its day, this building was used as Civil War hospital and was also used after the war as County Food House, as well as known. And in Stephen LeChance's book, it speaks about how Captain Crow. In Stephen LeChance's book, he speaks about how Captain Crow was involved in voodoo and witchcraft. Also, he said the house had some kind of portal to the underworld. And on any kind of land that has that much activity and that much blood, it creates portals. On eBay right now, you can get a spirit doll. And kids, don't try this at home. This is all for entertainment purposes only, but we're going to look at them just a little bit. So you can get all these haunted dollies, and I will tell you how to find one that's authentic. I think with any of them, you can summon something. It has magic words that come with it. Don't do this stuff. The older vintage ones, at least to me, have the most spirit activity. They're real beat up. Beat up dollies have, they've had a hard life. Like this one. She's older. Maybe. Even just looking at these things kind of creeps me out. There are pages of this. Pages and pages and pages. You can get voodoo ones. You can get nice ones, mean ones. This one. Evil demon doll. Or maybe someone just found this in a garage sale and decided to sell it. Look at that creepy clown. Maybe. Clowns freak me out. Haunted brass figurine doll, elephant spirit, powerful, courage, strength, active. We're on the subject of dolls. We got to talk about Annabelle. According to Wikipedia, a student nurse was given the doll in 1970. They said that the doll behaved strangely and that a psychic medium told the student that the doll was inhabited by the spirit of a deceased girl named Annabelle. The student and her roommate tried to accept and nurture the spirit-possessed doll, but the doll reportedly exhibited malicious and frightening behavior. It was at this point the Warrens say they were first contacted, moving the doll to their museum after pronouncing it demonically possessed. The doll remains in a glass box at Warren's Occult Museum in Monroe, Connecticut. Texas State University Assistant Professor of Religious Studies Joseph Laycock says most skeptics have dismissed the Warrens Museum as full of off-the-shelf Halloween junk dolls and toys, books you could buy at any bookstore. Laycock calls the Annabelle legend an interesting case study in the relationship between pop culture and paranormal folklore, and speculates that the demonic doll trope popularized by films such as Child's Play, Dolly Dearest, The Conjuring, likely emerged from early legends surrounding Robert the Doll, as well as a Twilight Zone Season 5, Episode 6, titled Living Doll, in which the character of the mother is named Annabelle, released 5 years prior to the Warren story. I didn't know that. I don't know what to think of the Warrens. I've heard they sensationalized a lot of their research. I can't prove that. I wasn't there. But this is... The real Annabelle is a Raggedy Ann. I honestly think they made Annabelle goofy looking. And there's my presentation. I hope you really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed making this one. I love making these videos. Everybody is artistic, and you just have to find what works for you. I'm going to send you off with some carnival footage.